and welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, February 29th. How's everybody doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Hey, doing great.
Thank you.
Well,
Doing good.
Fantastic.
we are officially open for business this week. And this week we are excited. Come on. We are all excited to try out Qubes OS, right?
I downloaded it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I downloaded it. I haven't tried it yet, but I did download it.
Nothing against Qubes OS. I mean, it's fine. It's just I know that we're not all excited. It's taken us out of our comfort zone. So the previous weeks we tried Clear Linux, and everybody was really super excited to try that out. And we got through the 2 weeks, and we blame Thomas for his random script generator or distro generator or whatever you call it, that it picked Qubes OS as our next challenge. And I know everybody was super excited to try it out, but that's what we're running. So I have it installed on this machine here, but I did not get a chance to play with it this weekend. I'm sorry about that, but it is installed and ready to go. But we're gonna go around and see who's going to talk about it. Aris, did you get a chance to try Qubes?
Yes, I actually saw Mint Spider. He has like the kind of the same CPU that I have, and it didn't work for him. I went along and downloaded it also, but it wouldn't work for me. My CPU is too old. I don't have the technology for the pass through for the network.
All right, DJ, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Rocco, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. What about Qubes, dude?
So yeah, I installed it. I had the opposite Three Bears problem where my one machine was too new, so it would not run. So I'd step back to Skull Canyon and installed it on it, and it came up just fine. So the my impressions of Qubes, I've used Qubes before, so it's not anything new, but it does take some time to get your head around how it actually is functioning and how it's working. But if you think of it like it's just nothing more than a graphical user interface for Zen, it falls into place. Everything's really just a virtual machine. So as far as the templates go, that takes some time too, because you can't update directly into the VM that you're running under. You have to do it under the template and then restart your VMs. And the only thing that I find a little bit tedious with it is that when you're doing updates, you have to do them one at a time for the operating systems. It only checks when you bring up the VM for the first time if it needs an update or not. So it makes it a little sluggish and a little slow to get through all the updates because you got one for Debian and one for Fedora.
So DJ, what do you think is who's the use case for Qubes OS?
I would say journalists or people that are very, yeah, seriously, I would think journalists, because if you're trying to protect your identity online, that's really what it's for. If you're, a common user, someone that's doing in a creative sphere, you're going to find Qubes really painful to use.
Well, maybe it's a good thing I didn't get a chance to check it out this week.
Oh my. Well, fortunately, I don't feel the need to. I mean, I may still, but because DJ's checking it out, he's got a video up on his channel. I'm sure there might be another one.
No, you told us you were going to check it out, Eric. I'm surprised.
Did I say that? I don't remember saying that. That can't be true. Well, maybe. Okay. Yes, I'm going to try it. Okay. I have not. It's been another one of those weeks, but you know how it is.
I know how it goes.
Yeah. So I will try to get there. Anyway, Thomas is away. I don't know if he's actually here at the moment. We may skip him. Big Pod. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. I didn't try Qubes OS.
Okay.
And on to the next one.
Okay. Fair enough. Tony. Hello, sir.
Hi. I tried to try it. It sort of works, but it keeps throwing up large black boxes with lots of text in telling me this isn't right, that isn't right. Every time it goes to sleep and wakes up, the computer's lost the wireless connection, and I've just had a look at it again now, and I can't find the wireless connection. It's disappeared completely. It's horrible. I hate to be negative about it, but I think it's horrible. It's old-fashioned. I can't find anything. Yuck. Next. Please try to pick something usable next week or week after next.
This is even easier because he's not here right now, but we can all blame Thomas for this.
Yes.
And we'll just stick with that.
Yeah,
so.
definitely. Yeah.
Well, hopefully there are some silver linings to this because, you know, I didn't try it. Several others haven't. Sounds like you had some pretty significant issues. So, Daniel,
There is one
news.
Sorry, there is one silver lining for me. I'm going to nuke it and put something else on, so it'll be okay.
Okay. Well, there you go. We all have to find our joy in this world, right, Tony? So, all right, Daniel.
All right. So my good news is I have nothing negative to say because I haven't tried it yet. No, so in order to try it, I need to wipe off the laptop here that I have that I'm pretty sure will run it with no problem. Because it's like one of the IBM, the sort of in between age IBM ThinkPad workstations. So it's got 32 gig of RAM. It's got an i7 processor in it. So it shouldn't have a problem with that. But in order to wipe this machine off, I have to get Linux running on my desktop, which has been a challenge for me this week. So getting my desktop set up the way that I want it so that I can actually record a video on the Qubes when I get it installed. So but I'm almost there. So my goal is this week.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much. Colin, did you get to try Qubes?
Yes, I did, Rocco. Just to let you know, some people probably thought this was a bit of a challenge. Right?
But you handled that.
Don't be impressed because there's no way I could do that, right? Somebody else did that. But anyway, I installed it on the desktop down here. It's only got 4 gigs of RAM. So you open up one window, bang, that was it. You had to log out or restart to open another window. So I thought that was a bit too much of a challenge. Tried it on the laptop. Didn't want to have nothing to do with that. So I pulled the laptop apart and there's the solid state drive and that's running in a caddy on my Intel Skull Canyon NUC. So I just I boot that up on the caddy and that seems to run fine on that. But I don't know, it's a bit boring after, open up a window, disposable Firefox or Firefox on Debian or what else are you supposed to do with it, to be honest? Like DJ said, it's got to be for someone who wants to protect their identity or something. The use case for me is really not much at all. So it's interesting, I have to say. It was an interesting one to install and get going and see how it works. You can open up a couple of files and you can copy them over if you watch the videos on the website. They've got a lot of videos for it on the website, so which tells you how to run it. But I don't know, it's a bit boring after a little while. There's not much to do with it. You can't tweak it. You can't do anything. You can just browse the internet off your personal or your disposable or whatever it is under Debian or Fedora. Nothing much else to do, unfortunately. So, but I found it interesting. So that's the positive.
Well, I think, again, just like Clear Linux, we are not the target audience for Qubes, but obviously there are people out there that love it and use it for something. So maybe journalists, like DJ said.
Journalists, yeah.
All right, Popey, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Is my audio okay?
It is.
That's a start. I vicariously enjoyed Qubes via DJ Weir's video on library. I discovered he had an LBRY or library, whatever you want to call it, channel, and I enjoyed him enjoying the product. So I didn't have to. So that means I don't. Yes, no, I'm not. I have no opinion other than to pipe what DJ said through to you.
I second that.
All right.
Oh my. So, Shickle, can we count on you to give it a look?
Well, do you want me to save the day or ruin the day? That's
Well,
that's the question.
Let's
at
see what you
hand.
got.
Well, okay. I'm not fond of it. It just feels like okay. I'm not fond of the repos that it uses. It does feel like it's a little bit behind what I'm used to. Comparing it to a Fedora system, there are a few things that are fixed in Fedora that aren't in the repos for Qubes because it's using, I think, version 30 of the repos, if I'm not mistaken. The actual experience itself, obviously, it's a little heavy because everything is containerized in this virtual machine, like box way of doing things. But if you do have a CPU that supports it and you do get it running, it's pretty cool. I definitely think that there are some advantages in regards to keeping your tasks from getting information from one another. I like the concept of this kind of virtualization. I don't think it's practical for almost anyone except for people who like seriously need it for their work. Maybe people dealing with sensitive information, or as it was mentioned, journalists, people who, they have to say things that powerful people might not like. I can see why um, doing as much as you can to separate the potential leak of information or something that might ruin your anonymity would definitely make something like this appealing. As for us, I think we're mostly just normal people who don't need to do that, but I'm glad that it exists. I think it's really cool. It's not an easy thing to do, so props to the developers for designing a system that works in this way. But yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Do you have any experience with Tails? So we're talking about Qubes in the sense of this, security and anonymity. And I know Tails is another one that's a big, right, proponent of this and the way it runs.
I think
I'm
Tails is a
wondering.
much easier way of getting that level of
Okay.
anonymity as well. It definitely doesn't have the kind of requirements that Qubes does in terms of your hardware and the features that it supports. So
Okay.
Can I say something about that real quick?
No, Bill. Sorry.
No, sorry.
No, you're speaking out of line, Bill.
So you mentioned Tails and Qubes, and they almost have different use cases. So the use case, let's say with Qubes, let's say I'm a security journalist or researcher, and I get sent a file from someone. That file may have a virus. It may be a bad script, malicious. So I can put it into a containerized hypervisor that's totally separated from the other hypervisor setups on this and run that. So that's one of the use cases. It can complete, and then I can blow it away. So you could have sent me, let's say I'm leaker X and I have this thing, and you're just sending it to me because you want me to run this, and I'm a journalist. Or if I'm a security person that's doing some interesting things, maybe using stuff like, or I'm doing some penetration testing in this distro and I'm doing something over here, that's really where it is, where Tails is made for, let's say I want something that's for my online banking. I'm just a regular person. I don't want it touching anything else. So the use cases are almost completely separate. And this is getting privacy and security kind of a little bit mixed up. Sorry.
Okay. No, and that's why I asked these questions, because I'd like to, if we're talking about journalism and privacy and excuse me, anonymity, the first thing that pops in my mind is something like Tails, which is why that makes me think, well, what's the big difference? So I appreciate you explaining that.
Yeah, and the use case for Tails with a journalist might even be, say you're in a coffee shop, or maybe you need to be off your normal pattern of where you are and have like basically a burner machine.
Okay.
Because every time it comes up, it will randomize your MAC IDs. So
Gotcha.
that could be a use there too for that. But
yeah,
Qubes
I do that.
would not be good for being like on the mobile, considering how heavy it would be with all the different things going on.
Got it. Yeah, I actually already randomize my my MAC address with systemd. for some Wi-Fi networks I have to deal with where they don't like my VPNs and will kick me off eventually. So I have to keep refreshing. Anyway, yeah, there's lots of ways to do little pieces of this piecemeal, but I guess that's the utility of these types of distributions. So, all right, great. Well, I'm glad I asked the question because I wouldn't have known otherwise. All right, Mr. Grubbs.
I hope my audio is okay because I totally didn't check it.
You sound fine.
Awesome. I did not check out Qubes. I'm more of a tetrahedron kind of guy, so hopefully that'll help.
Geometry humor for the win.
Yeah.
And there was a ding there too. That just worked great.
Yeah. Got him. All right. All
Excellent.
right, Jason. Did you try Qubes?
I attempted to try it, but it did not like. I have 3 different laptops that I attempted to put it on, and it didn't like any of them. One was an AMD system, one was a i7 system. I think the other one's like I want to say i3 or something. And it had various amounts of RAM. One had 4, one had 6, and one has 8. And it didn't like it wouldn't even install on them. It just kept throwing up, error messaging during the install and stuff. So, nope, I have not officially tried it yet.
All right, Barbara.
I haven't tried it yet. I did download it, and then I saw that it says that you need a 32 gig USB to install it on to at least try it. I have to find one that I don't have junk on that I can use. So I may try it for next week. I don't know, but yeah, that's as far as I've gotten.
Okay. Papal Penguin.
Good evening. I didn't get a chance to try it either. I don't have a 32 gig flash drive.
Okay.
So, and also my computer that I use for testing doesn't have enough memory. So, next for me.
Got it. Okay. Well, he's not seated. But Scrapjaw, are you there? Can you hear me? Bad timing. Let's see if he hears. Scrap, you're up.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm actually going to try and install it during the show here because I have to wipe out this Ubuntu anyway. So I'll get back to you when I get it all done.
What was your adventure last week? You were doing the MacBook with something else on it?
Yeah, with Farron.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually using it right now. I ended up putting the low latency kernel on it. It's running pretty smooth. The only thing I ran into so far with it, it's a 2010 MacBook Pro i5 2-core hyper-threaded. But the only issue I ran into so far is the thermal throttling. I'm sitting at 94, 95C right now.
Wow.
So, but I've got it up on a couple of these drumsticks, so that way I have a little bit of air underneath of it.
Is it just screaming?
It is screaming.
Yeah.
That's why good thing I have a gate on this mic, or else you just hear the whole time. But it's running. I mean, it's like now I have a compact thing, so my big rig's over here, and I can do this over here. And I'll tell you what, it's one of the few distros that I got to use Ardour on even. Because normally I use Mixbus, which makes all the routing pretty easy. But Ardour actually installed well on it and ran. But yeah, I did a whole hour live stream. It's on my YouTube. Scrapjaw.studio is my website. You can plug that in and then go over there and find my YouTube through there. My mic was not, my gate was set really stupid. So half the time when I'm talking, you probably can't even tell what I'm saying, but everything's visually there. I'm going to edit it.
Okay. Well, I'm interested to see your setup for the audio stuff. Definitely. Okay.
Scrapjaw's the Jack wizard.
I'm the Padawan. I'm trying.
All right, Nate. Sir,
I had a really hard time finding it because I only heard Qubes. I never actually looked it up. So I was looking for Cubes when really it's Qubes. So I never actually found it until today. That's gonna be my excuse anyway.
Not that there was a link in the Telegram group pinned to the top. No.
Let's not go. Let's not try and pin me down.
We threw him into the wilderness.
I was just wandering the internet,
right?
Just looking
for Qubes.
So let's say we can just say I didn't.
Okay, we'll just leave it there.
Nobody spells anything the way it should be spelled in Linux.
computer should be spelled with a K.
Right?
Oh, I saw
Yeah.
that coming.
I mean,
out.
I don't understand why you couldn't find it, Nate, because I actually typed in Qubes, Cubes space Linux, and it popped right up. So I don't know what search engine you were using.
Barb, he was making an excuse.
I know.
I
I
totally
just had a
fabricated.
burst of something.
Just had to pin me down, huh? Pin me down. I could have gone onto the discourse. I could have asked somebody.
Wow.
I think the bus just ran you over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Busted.
All right,
Michelin.
Bill,
It's my favorite.
we're going to save Nate by moving on. Bill.
Well, did I use it this week? No, because it was like feature freeze week, so I was busy doing some other
Come
stuff.
on. I mean, that's like, it sounds like an excuse, Bill. I mean,
It is. I mean, I've used it before, and like I mentioned earlier, but yeah, I didn't use it this week. So
You know what? Alan could have used that excuse and he didn't. So
he picked another one to use. So, all right. So, our distro challenge is 2 weeks long. So we are going to continue trying Qubes this week for those that would like to. For those that don't want to, that's fine.
Hey, Rocco, can I say something real quick before we get off this?
Sure.
So we talked about the security and privacy part of this, but something to think about is the technical aspect. So this is basically a big Zen hypervisor, and there's some really cool aspects when you're thinking about it. So you're basically using your whole system to run VMs, and it's a very interesting concept that is sort of in the beginning, and right now it's focused on a security aspect, but there's some really nice stuff to think about coming possibly in the future, and it kind of takes you out of your normal mindset, how you normally use a computer, with having virtual machines in different containers. So if you're going into a mindset where I'm going to use this like I use my computer every day, you're going to run into a roadblock. If you're a little bit more open-minded and looking at maybe what the future, and this could be like a building block for something, you might have a little bit better experience.
Well, I agree, Bill. And actually there was a comment on the YouTube on Biddle last week, I think it was, by somebody that said that there should be more technical guests on the show so that we can try out distros like this. And, I guess that person kind of misses the point that this isn't like a technical panel of people who are here to try out distros and tell them exactly what this is and what that is. This is just a group of people who like to get together and talk about Linux. So we are really not the use case for Qubes or Clear Linux, but that doesn't mean we can't try it out, have fun with it, and see what the potential of it could be. And you're right. I mean, there is future potential for something like this. And who knows, we may get to a point where this is the norm later and we'll all be used to it. But right now it's not. So again, we'll try it for another week and see what happens.
I just wanted to ask DJ Ware a question. Did you capture the screen on that? Because I haven't been able to get Simple Screen Recorder working in it. It just captures one big window.
So I took the audio and the video directly off of the machine and put it through a capture card. Is how I did it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Right. I was going to add one more thing about Qubes too. One of the other things is the vault. And the vault's kind of interesting in that if you have personal data that you want to keep so that it goes absolutely nowhere other than your screen and your keyboard, that's a good place for it, because there's no way, well, I wouldn't say no way, but it'd be very difficult to ferret it out of there. The main thing about, security aside, it's separation of purpose. That's really what Qubes is about. So you have all these different options for, I'm going to be browsing websites that I do not know about. I don't know how secure they are. I don't know if they're injecting malware into my system. Then you have areas within Qubes that you can do your work, your personal, and then you can keep all of that information separate. It's separation of concerns. That's really what Qubes is about. So whether or not it's for you, you have to determine whether or not you're interested in keeping your data away from people that want it.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, it's you're right. And when we looked at things like, what was it? Everything OS, or no, I can't remember what it was. Was that it? Not everything.
It was Endless.
Endless OS. Thank you. That was another one where we just kind of went, why would you need a 20 gigabyte, installation? And it's because we just weren't thinking of it in terms of, well, if you didn't have internet, what would you do? And I think these are just different use cases for Linux. And actually what's really cool about it is it shows the utility and versatility of Linux and that you can do things like this. And yes, for most people, it's not going to make sense. Like DJ said, if you're creating content or viewing content, just using a computer maybe in a more normal way, it's probably not going to be a great experience. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have a good place. So, Big Pod, yes, sir.
This stuff the virtualization is used on servers for so long, so this isn't even a big experiment. It's just applying virtualization a different way to a different set of audiences. While yes, it has certain security implications, there is also need to understand that the security aspect isn't always that secure really with virtualization, because you never know when there are vulnerabilities in virtualization, where there have been quite a few in years. So even now the whole Spectre meltdown, which most of it was fixed, with some you can basically copy every memory, even if virtualization, even if you have virtualized environments. So it doesn't, in the end, it doesn't really matter if someone is determined enough to get your data and what you're doing, whether you're using virtualized environment or you're using direct system, they can still get it. You just need enough determined attacker.
Yeah, fair point.
Yep. Anybody else want to jump in on Qubes before we move on? All right, so that's what we have for Qubes this week. Again, I didn't think it was going to be a huge hit, and that's not a slight against Qubes or the developers that put the work into it. That's just, it's not a use case for us, for most of us anyway. It does have some exciting prospects for maybe down the road, but for right now, it's something that, not a lot of us are into. So we have an extra half. Go ahead, Eric.
Go ahead. I didn't know if you.
Well, we have an extra half hour this week, and because of a lot of people not trying Qubes, so I would like to kind of point out some of the content that has come out in the past couple weeks, in the past couple days, video-wise. So. One, if you haven't subscribed to DJ's channel, you really should go over there and check his channel out. He is constantly putting out videos, put together videos, almost like a slideshow presentation type videos, and they are awesome. They're packed full of information that if you want to know, say, for example, his Qubes video, if you want to know what this is, what it's about, what it's for, what you can do with it, his video is something that you want to check out. So we have to put a link. I don't know if somebody can grab a link of his channel and put it out in the YouTube chat. Definitely
DJ,
something.
Can you throw it in the Zoom chat for us? You wouldn't mind?
I've just chucked it in the chat.
Okay.
Definitely somebody's video. It's definitely, you want to check out his videos. Definitely. Eric, you just hit 1,000 subscribers on your channel, and you did a live stream on it last night, I believe.
I did, and I had people come and troll me from early morning in the UK. Not sure how that happened, but yes, I did. It was a lot of fun, and I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for getting me over that four-digit mark. And I was just minding my own business, streaming, and then all of a sudden, maybe I don't know, Alan Pope and Martin Wimpress showed up and then started picking on me, and someone had said they wanted to do fan art of me, and then that turned into a whole ridiculous thing, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And yeah, so
sorry.
No,
really
don't
sorry.
be. It was a lot of fun. It really was. I laughed so hard my face hurt when I was done. So That's always a good sign. But yeah, thanks for. I mean, I've said it last night, but for everyone who's subscribed, I really appreciate it. And yeah.
Well, I unsubscribed after last night, but sorry.
Well, who's gonna thumbs down my videos, Adam?
Oh, I
That's
can do it. I don't have to be subscribed.
Okay,
for
that's
that.
true. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Well, congratulations, Eric. Well deserved, man. All right, Colin puts out some nice stuff. Actually, he has some video. Colin, what's your latest video about?
He's muted.
I don't get caught out with mute very often. That was Enzo OS because I never made a video about it when we did the with the challenge, so I just put that out. And I also did the dual boot with Clear Linux and Elementary as well before that, I think it was. So just some, I like to tackle little issues that people may be interested in. Sometimes not necessarily looking around the desktop, just depends.
So DistroTube in the chat said that Colin will always review a distro, which is absolutely true. He never backs down. And secondly, for people who don't generally like distro reviews, I like a lot of the people in here don't just do straight distro reviews, which is great. Like DJ, we said he does a very technical, in-depth review, and Colin does a very personal. This is how I came to it. This is how I used it. These are the things I did with it. So it wasn't just here's a distro. It's here's how I took this distro and used it. And all of Colin's videos are excellent. So go check them out.
Thanks.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Agreed. Popey, you just did a video that was a big hit.
Yeah, it was a bit. I did two. I did one which was on Tuesday this week, called Testing Tuesday, which basically was I just updated my laptop to all the latest packages in 2004, and then I started poking around a little bit and showed off the new theme and the new theme switcher that was added to the Ubuntu LTS release that comes out in April. Obviously, we're still working on that, but I wanted to show off a couple of things, so I made a little video. But I tried to use the YouTube Premiere because one of the things I find is I find it difficult to keep up with the chat while I'm doing something, and I get distracted, or people distract me. Hey, Eric, isn't that?
I'll be there next time. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I pre-recorded it, and then I scheduled it as a premiere, and I also pinged Martin and said, "Hey, can you join?" So we could both sit in the chat and answer questions, playing back. And I know some people don't like premieres on YouTube. I thought I'd give it a try, and that went down quite well. And then I did another one the next day that was inspired by a video. Who did that? Who did I get inspiration from? Chris Ware, who did one showing how he uses Linux Mint, and I thought I'll do one about how I use Ubuntu, and then it spiraled off into which extensions I have installed and like how I've tweaked my desktop, and that inspired Joe Collins to make a similar video where he made one about what his workflow is like. So it was quite a nice little, pass on the baton to the next person to make a little video about how they use their desktop. And I find it quite interesting to see how other people use their desktop. So yeah, that went down quite well.
Well, a couple things. I think the Premiere is a great idea, and I like watching Premiere videos. I don't have a use case for the Premiere video just because of the way things are set up, but I actually enjoy watching the Premiere because you can talk to the person while they're there. Where a live stream, you ask a question, you may get an answer, you may not get an answer. I'm sure there's tons of people in the chat that have said things that I have completely missed, but in a Premiere, you're concentrating on the chat itself. So I think that's awesome, and I have no problems with that. But your video about the workflow and everything, you also went into the screenshots that you had years and years ago. I thought that was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I actually this evening I've been sorting through my screenshots, because what I do is I just take a screenshot using the screenshot tool, so it's saved in the pictures folder with the date and timestamp already in it, and it's always done that for me. And I back up all my systems, and so I've got these screenshots going back years where I've just kept them you know, I just happened to have a server that's got all my backups on, and so I still got them. And I thought, oh, it'd be nice to. What I wanted to show was, like, some people switch around desktop all the time, and some people don't. Like, you're a distro hopper or you're not a distro hopper, basically. And I'm not really a distro hopper, but what I wanted to show was I was a distro hopper in the early days. I tried out XFCE and I tried out Red Hat and I tried Debian and I tried KDE, and I tried lots of things before I finally settled on Ubuntu. I did miss out a bunch of screenshots like between 2006 and like now. So there's a lot of like Unity screenshots that I just found this evening. So I might revisit that. But the irony is I've switched off every single one of those extensions that I had in that video. I've turned them all off.
Why?
So that because I wanted to go back to what the stock experience
Testing.
is like, so that I could
Right.
test it and be
Yeah.
sure that if I'm going to file a bug, I'm not filing a bug against some tainted code.
I actually picked up a few extensions from that video.
I did too. I did that. The
Excellent.
sound switcher one
Oh,
is
so good.
excellent.
I've always used the sound switcher, but I picked up the emoji thing
Mm.
and the screen capture. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, they're both pretty essential. And interestingly, I've just kicked off another backup on my laptop, and the next video I'm going to wipe it. So I'm going to start from scratch with 2004 and do a clean install. I don't do clean installs very often. I upgrade all the time, but I'm going to do a full backup and start from scratch because I want to switch to using ZFS. And you can't migrate to ZFS. You really have. I mean, I'm sure you probably can, but it's not straightforward. I want to go through the installer, switch to ZFS, and then use that going forward. So that'll be another video, I think.
Well,
The
what you
other-
said. Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, finish yours and then.
Well, what you said about using stock GNOME, I think there's only one person alive that likes to use stock GNOME, and that's Adam Grubbs.
He's here now.
Well, you say
Just
that,
saying. I'm
and
just
I
teasing.
did say in the video, let me know if you use stock. And I've had a few comments on the video from people who say, a lot of people have said, I use stock GNOME, but with this one extension. Or
Right.
I've got, I use stock GNOME, except for these two extensions that I really have to have. And it's like, well, that's not stock GNOME then.
Right. How many people said they use stock GNOME, period?
I think I got like 2 or 3.
Well, Adam uses it, but he uses the
I got
Apple
a-
extension.
I got a few accounts. I mean,
The truth comes out.
eh.
The only thing I was going to add was that on Alan's channel, there's some other great videos about logging bugs, and just basically, how to work with a distro, how to kind of get into it and test some things, and it's a different perspective than I think a lot of the YouTube channels bring, and so it's interesting from that perspective if you haven't looked at it.
Interestingly, the vast majority of videos on my channel are unlisted because the vast majority of them are actually me filing bugs. So that whole thing where I tell everyone you've got to file a bug. There are tons of videos which are just me with my smartphone recording the screen, or like recording. Like one of the most recent ones was when I put my laptop into the docking station. There's this mad flickering on all the displays, and I wanted to capture that. And so the easiest way to do that was with a smartphone, and I put it on YouTube and then link in the bug report to the unlisted video. So all of those have got like 5 views from the 2 or 3 bug triage people who've looked at them. So most of my channel is thankfully unlisted because it's all just rubbish, me moaning about broken stuff, basically.
Chicken, you also have a YouTube channel.
Oh gosh, do I?
You do.
What did I do?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Your latest video, I think, was it? Maybe not your latest video, but your one that I caught the latest was about the gaming distro.
Oh yeah. So I like, how sometimes people they eventually crack under the pressure because they hear something so often and it just bugs them and then they explode. That was my video. I tried not to explode too much, but I kept seeing people will ask too, and it's not like it's their fault for asking. I can see
It's a common
why
question, dude.
Yeah. And I started seeing articles. I've seen people they'll answer super seriously to these people. They'll tell them that X is the best gaming distro or Y is the best gaming, but no one ever asks like, well, what exactly are you gaming on? What are you going to play? What is this? What is like? They're just like, insert distro here because I use it, basically. Like, performance wise, there's not going to be really any significant difference on almost any distro you use. So there's no performance benefit. And then in terms of actually finding something that the person asking wants, like, it's just whatever you enjoy using, you're almost certainly going to be able to get anything you want running on it. Like, Steam is available in pretty much every repo at this point. And even if it's not, I think there's a flat pack for it. Wine is available pretty much anywhere. You can get really recent versions of like Wine software, because I know sometimes the older versions don't work with newer software. Um, like in OpenSUSE, they have the OBS to get really new versions of these things. Like, there's just no excuse to be like making claims like X is the best distro, Y is the best distro, because realistically, people can use whatever they're happy with and have the same gaming experience on any of them. So there's just no point to me.
I think the better question is not which distro is better for gaming, but maybe which distro is easier out of the box, that's set up for somebody who doesn't want to put the effort into trying to make it work as a gaming distro. But you're right, any distro can be and is a gaming distro.
I would also argue that it depends on what type of gaming you're doing. Because if you want to do like emulators, Laka OS is a great distro for emulator gaming. That being said, if you aren't an advanced user, it's a pain to get access to a terminal. As far as I was aware when I tried it, because I was a newbie at the time, I couldn't get access to the terminal. Now that I know how to do that, I could probably do that, but I don't know what the package manager for it is.
Well, yours is a perfect example, Thomas Drager. It's set up for gaming. It maybe makes it easier to, with the least amount of setup in the beginning, to play games. But you can do what you're doing on your distro, on any distro, if you put the effort into it. So, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was a good, perfect timing video, Chicken.
And I definitely do think that there are some advantages to, like Pop OS, they have Lutris available in App Center, like, or I think they call it Pop Shop, actually.
Pop Shop, yeah.
They have that available through there, and I think it's because they have the repo for Lutris installed by default. And I think little touches like that can definitely be helpful. But I think sometimes people get misled when they're told that something is the best option, or when people hear that claim, but realistically, there's no reason you can't use any distro and still have whatever comforts you enjoy from it and have a good gaming experience as well.
Gnostic says, let's see you get AAA games running on Qubes.
Well, considering they don't support video drivers, I'm guessing that's probably not going to be.
That's perfect. Perfect, Gnostic.
And speaking of gaming distros, we haven't heard from Silent in quite a long time, Silent Robot. And I'm finding out that the reason for that is because he's been busy putting out different versions. Steve, actually, from Steve's very own, was testing out, was testing out it may have been Ali. I'm sorry, it could have been Ali. I don't remember. One of those guys. They were testing out, he's got Plasma, he's got a bunch of different stuff now. But Salient, the original Salient OS, was very much focused. It was Arch-based and very much focused on gaming. So that's maybe where some of those smaller distros come into play too, where they have a lot of that heavy work done for you. So I just wanted to mention that because I miss having Silent around.
I do. Yep, I do. But, again, you can, so you can take Salient and you can start it up, and it is pretty much all set up for you. Everything is set up for you to be able to game. You could do that on any distro, but you have to put the work into it. And as the violinist said, you have to know how to do that. If you don't know how to do all of that, maybe in certain cases, there is a better gaming distro for people that don't know how to do it. But if you have the technical drive to do it, you can do it on any distro.
Is Windows a good gaming distro?
Depends on the game.
Well, the reason I ask is because it doesn't come with Steam or Lutris out the box, or any other like game launchers like GOG Galaxy or itch.io or any of the others. Generally
Or video
doesn't come with the
drivers.
latest up-to-date video drivers or mouse drivers or keyboard tricked out things. So why do we have these expectations that Linux should magically out of the box be premium quality gaming experience when
Because we're all divas.
Okay, there we go. You answered it.
No, I think that it's more of not today. Like specifically today, NVIDIA drivers are getting easier to install. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago, that may not have been the case. So on Windows, you would have been able to go to NVIDIA, click a search thing, and it would automatically search your computer, tell you this is the driver to download, click a button and install it.
Well, not quite. It would make you download a thing first.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is...
right, but from a normal user's point of view, that's not out of the box. That's not
Mhm.
out of the box. I had to install a thing in order to find out which other thing I needed to install before I could install another thing that lets me install games, right? You've gone through 4 separate levels to get to, I want to play this game.
But isn't that true with other OSs as well, for example?
Well,
I mean, I know we're talking about Linux, but I mean, any system that wants to play games, you're gonna have to download something to get those games, and then you have to update this to update that to get this to work, and it's all gonna be the same thing. Nothing is out of the box a gaming machine. It's more of what you want to do in the aspect of gaming. You want like the AAA titles, you want to play the the Minecraft little pixelated things, or this, that, and the other thing. It's all going to depending on what you actually want to do with that in that particular version of the OS of an OS that you're using. Then you can decide whether or not you're going to make it a gaming OS, basically a gaming system after you download everything that is needed to do that. Nothing comes straight out of the box. It's everything ready.
So what is this Windows you speak of? I have no idea.
This
what
is a Windows is this thing that actually broke Ryan from DasGeek's computer when he just mentioned the word. We were on the podcast earlier today, a little meet and greet, like a little Q&A thing. And he mentioned Windows and his whole system. It was hilarious.
I would just like to point out that by default, Windows has a nice little button for Minecraft right in the start menu.
Wow.
Technically, it's an ad though, so
it cost them a few billion to do. But...
The only thing that I will say about Windows is for people that aren't like real technically savvy, yes, they have to go download Steam, but that's pretty much all they have to go download if that game is in the Steam library. So there's no Proton, there's no Lutris, there's none of that other stuff that sometimes can be difficult to set up if you don't know how.
Well, then sometimes they still have to go down and get the, they'll install this card, but it requires, they have, requires X driver. And you have to go get that driver. See, Windows is all about the drivers. And so there are times when you download Steam, buy the game, download the game, then you still have to install this to get the game to work.
So
I've had that.
Most of the time, that's it, because
by the way,
Windows Tablet normally installs graphics drivers itself, especially with the newer graphics cards.
Yeah.
So that is a minor problem for most people.
It
But you still
doesn't
have to update them and do all that stuff.
Yeah, you still have to update them. And okay,
It
so
does
like my
automatically.
Windows system on the other drive has the NVIDIA GeForce Experience or whatever it is installed. That automatically searches for updates, tells me there's an update, and it downloads it and installs it.
Yep.
I have yet to run into those issues as far as, and I don't play a lot of games. I mean, I don't play a lot of different games. I play a lot of Call of Duty. So that's Battle.net. I downloaded Battle.net, install it. It is a pain in the neck for updates as far as it's constantly updating this or updating that. But
that's Activision, though.
There's no, I haven't run into those problems where there's middleware that you have to install in order to play the game. I'm not saying that's good, bad, indifferent, better. All I'm saying is Well, I don't know how we got on. Alan, this is all your fault. We got off this track.
It is. So the point I was
I think
just trying to make
that was
is
partially me
we
too.
so the point I was trying to make is that we are trying to make, or we're claiming that there are Linux distros that are, the best possible out of the box gaming experience, and that's great. But like, it's not like that's the case for every other OS as well. But the other side of it is gaming is only one part of this world.
Right.
And if you optimize for exactly one narrow use case, then maybe you're not optimizing for the other use cases. Like a developer who is installing Linux because they want a developer workstation, because they want to develop Android games, for example, they don't care about installing Steam. That's not a thing. Lutris isn't a thing for them. For them, they want to be able to get their IDE of choice, maybe Android Studio, maybe ADB tools, maybe Git and all that kind of stuff, and maybe some tools to manage their Git repos or whatever. It's great that Linux allows us to have these special case distros, but often we can become too focused on one use case and not appreciate that there are other use cases out there, like development or music creation, or artistry, or something where it doesn't matter that Steam is not available.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, if you want like a gaming distro, just go get a console.
Honestly, this is one of the reasons why I actually love Linux, because you can make a distro that's good for just about anything, like Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, Pop! OS. You can make a general use distro. But then let's say you want something that is better or more tuned towards a very specific use case, you can do that. There are distros that are designed not just for gaming, but also for server use, like CentOS or Ubuntu server, things like that. You can make a distro that runs better on ARM, which is like Armbian, things like that. And you can do that because Linux is open source. You can't do that with Windows. Windows, you get what you get, and you kind of stuck with it. So this is why I love Linux, because we can actually talk about like, hey, I have a distro and I want to change it to be better at this specific thing because this is what I do most of the time.
So I know it's a matter of semantics, but there are server versions of Windows, there are gaming versions of Windows, like the Xbox. There are ARM versions of Windows.
I'm well aware, but
Hey.
if you're talking about like server versus like a gaming optimized version of Windows, the only real difference between them is the amount you pay and the stability. There's next to no performance difference. We've seen this in
I think
videos.
there's also the point that you can't make a spin of Windows.
Yeah, correct.
And distribute a spin of Windows.
Yeah.
I think.
So speaking of running software, like things that are open automatically and stuff for like updating all the time on Windows, like Battle.net, I was curious about you guys' opinions on this. So when I switched to Linux, the one thing that I noticed that I almost never get is applications on their own telling me about new versions of software or things running in the background without them being put into like an auto start folder. But I'm seeing it more and more, and I just got a notification, I think it was from GIMP, that there was a new version available. Like, is this something that is just avoided on Linux because implementing it isn't quite the same as on Windows? Like, things just don't get started? Or, like, is software telling you about new updates a thing that people just don't like? Or...
There's a few angles to this. So I've spoken to developers who have created software that exists on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And on Windows, they have the Windows Store. They have an update mechanism. On the Mac, they have the App Store. There is an update mechanism. On Linux, they don't. That's what they see. They see, I create a package, I put it on my website. I would have to build the infrastructure, a web server somewhere that announces what the next version is, and I have to publish it, and then I have to manage all of that. And then they take a step back and go, well, hang on, Linux is 1% of my market. Do I really want to spend all that time engineering an automatic update system and notifications? No, I don't, because the revenue I'll generate will not pay for the engineer that needs to make that whole system, or engineering and QA that needs to make that system. And so some of them have used things like App Image, which now has an update mechanism, and it punches you in the face when there's an update and says, hey, there's a new version of your software, and you click a button. And the developers like that because they don't have to re-implement a whole update mechanism, because they didn't have to implement an update mechanism on Windows, and they didn't have to implement an update mechanism on the Mac, right?
Well, I think the only program that I know of on my machine that will tell me there's an update is private internet access. That will not pop up on notification, but when you open it, there's a kind of like a tab at the bottom that says there's a new version available. Do you consider that where people, the users themselves, wouldn't want the programs? I think it would be that most Linux users wouldn't want a program going out online without their knowledge or without their explicit okay to check for updates. Am I wrong?
Users are weird. There's a set of users on Linux who are, for want of a better phrase, control freaks. And they are adamant that they are in control of every version number of every file on their system. And this is my domain, it's my computer, and I am the one who is trusted with deciding what software goes on this computer. And every revision of libz or lib whatever, I will decide whether that gets installed or not. Those are actually quite a small number of people, but they're incredibly vocal. The vast majority of people actually just want the stuff to just update and it just work, right? Nobody wants an update to break their system. Nobody wants a new version of some application to just break. Nobody wants that, but software has bugs and it happens. But the vast majority of people on all other platforms, iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, on all of them, the vast majority of the users turn on automatic updates. They just want the latest thing. I have no clue what version of Spotify I have on my phone. I just know it's the latest version. Why can't Linux be the same?
Well, I agree. I think any program you put on your system should be able to at least let you know there's an update. Let you choose whether you want to install the update, but at least let you know, hey, there's a new version of this. Because, I mean, okay, we'll just take Zoom, for example. Zoom works great on Linux. Okay, I won't say great. Zoom works on Linux, but they're always coming out with new versions of it. And you have to physically go to the Zoom website and re-download the deb file and install it again. Why can't it just have an auto update feature, or at least let you know, hey, there's an update?
Right, and that's what some developers have done. Like Chrome, if you download the Chrome deb, it ninjas a line in your sources.list in the background in order to ensure that you're always getting updates with all your other package updates. But they're a big company and they can afford to run their own repo, and they can afford to do the engineering to make the software detect when there's an update and give you a little notification and say, restart your browser, there's been an update. Most small developers don't have the engineering to do that. But also, then we end up back in the Windows world that everyone hated about 10 years ago, where you go on holiday for a week, and when you come back, you open up your Windows laptop, and 20 different applications say they want to be updated. You've got Java telling you it wants updated. You've got Flash telling you it wants updated. Adobe PDF Reader tells you it wants updating. Your browser wants updating. And all these things are all updating differently. And that's a horrible mess. I don't want that on Linux.
Yep. Well, what's everybody else think?
Dude, I'm all about the way that we do things like on mobile and everything. Like Alan, like Kobe said, it's just I just know I have the latest version because my phone just takes care of that. And I know a lot of people worry like, well, what if an update breaks something or whatever? Well, we don't worry about that on our phones for some reason. Like there's still software, it can still break, but I definitely think we should have automatic updates. Like I like the fact that like the snaps in Ubuntu just update in the background. Like and then the next time you open it up, it's the latest version. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's huge for me. Like when I first started using Linux, I was always opening up a terminal and like checking for updates. But like once snaps were kind of rolled out and most of my apps on Ubuntu kind of became snaps, like I never even needed to check because like it would just happen. And I'd open up an app sometimes, and sometimes they have like little greeter things that tell you what's new in whatever version. And I'm just like, oh, cool. I have whatever they just released. And I love that so much.
One thing I want to mention about the cell phone auto update for, like, say, iOS, for example. I can't speak for Android, but I used to work for Apple. I was there when the senior Apple care advisors, and one of the things that I always told the people that when they would call in with a software issues or whatever, is turn off the automatic update. You can turn on the auto download, but do not do the auto install. Because the biggest problem with Apple's software, this is for an example of how that can backfire, is you never want to install the Apple update the first week it comes out. You want to give it time for them to figure out if there's any bugs and stuff like that. Then they release a different update. Then you go to that update, because back when iOS, I want to say it was iOS 8 or something, it was a while ago. They had a whole line of issues where it was bricking phones left and right because people just auto updating automatically. I don't have anything in any of my systems do auto updates. Sure, you can download it, but I want to choose whether or not to install it based off of the time frame passes before so we can see if anything breaks when other people do it automatically. So I always recommend auto download, but not auto install.
Most app stores these days, including the Snap Store, have canarying, so the update only goes out to like 1% of the audience, and as long as you don't hear from people saying it's broken, you roll it out to 5%, and then you roll it out to 10%, 20%, and you scale up over a period of time. And advanced users get frustrated because they want the update now, and they've heard that the person sat next to them got the update. Why did I not get it? Or some guy posted a screenshot of the new version online. Why have I not got this? And it's there to protect you, like, from exactly that use case of one update going out, hitting everybody, and the whole world being broken. Like, nobody wants that. So yeah, most of them have canarying.
Yeah.
Now
I saw that a lot though, and like I said, with the Apple world, not just iOS but also in Mac. I was the senior advisor for Mac iOS accountability. I did everything. I was cross trained, and I would get calls of, I did an update, and as soon as it came out, and XYZ was bricked, and even Apple. Like I work for a third party vendors that Apple hired. They wouldn't even install the new, roll out the new updates to our systems because everything was locked down because it wasn't our computers. They wouldn't even roll it out until they tested it fully to make sure it worked with everything. So that's the way it goes.
One of the things that I don't have a problem with what Alan's saying at all. I think that's a great idea. Given the cadence of updates today, they're coming. I mean, you look at Clear Linux 9 a week. But one thing I would really would like to see as a suggestion is give us a way to roll back.
Yep.
Well, snap revert. It does exactly that. If you type snap revert and the name of the snap, it will just go. Blop,
yeah,
back
Snap
to the
does, but APT doesn't.
Right. Well, the other thing here that you got to look at too, that may be, devil's advocate. Like I said, when I boot into Windows, there are all of these programs instantly looking for updates, and that's not something you want either. On Linux, you don't want every program as soon as you start your computer to start looking for updates for the program. So, yeah, it's definitely got some nuances to it. Thomas?
So I actually filed that bug against Snaps because I suspend my laptop all the time. I just shut the lid, and when I open the lid the next morning, the Snap system would just go, right, time to get some updates as soon as I open the laptop. And so they added a thing which detects when your laptop has just woken up, and it defers the update for a random amount of time in the future. So yeah, those are exactly the things, but you only discover that after you've some angry person like me shouting at you because my system is unusable as soon as I wake it up.
Thomas, you wanted to go ahead.
So personally, I don't like it when applications let me know that there's a new update, because if I'm using this app, I'm trying to get something done. And if something's telling me that there's an update, that's in my way and it's preventing me from being more productive. And I don't want it installing or even downloading the update before I'm ready to update, because that can take up my bandwidth. Because at home, I have some really bad internet. And if I'm sitting there trying to watch a YouTube video, for instance, and I don't want to update right now, and something in the background is downloading an update to Firefox, that's going to take up my bandwidth. And I'm going to immediately notice that my internet connection is going to go from being able to play a 1080p YouTube video just fine to, oh, now we need to drop it down to 480p because I can't even handle 720p. So I don't want it doing that to me. I want to be like, okay, I'm not doing anything right this second. Update everything all at once, and then I'll let it go. And I do the exact same thing on my phone, because if I don't have fast internet, then I'll definitely notice that something's going on. Or even if it's just installing the updates, the updates have already been downloaded, sometimes I'll notice that it's doing something in the background. And if my fans ramp up, I'm immediately like, whoa, wait, I did not tell it to compile a code or something like that. Why are my fans ramping up? This is uncommon.
But it's not that you don't want to know that there's an update. You just want to have control over when to download it, when to check, when to install it.
Right. But I do like sudo app update so often that the update notifier thing never has time to let me know that there's an update. I'm just already on it because I do it that quick.
So you also have, sorry, go ahead.
I could run Arch in the days where Arch broke if you missed a single update and be perfectly fine. Honestly, I could.
So you also have the issue of like a lot of people do have that same mindset, whether it be, you know, their internet connection or their machines processing or whatever, that, you know, they're like, hey, I'm trying to do something. I don't want to be interrupted with updates or, you know, things being bogged down. But then these people, you know, as Alan pointed out, they open up their laptop, they want to start doing something. And then they're like, I'm doing something, go away. And if you don't have some mechanism to push updates to them, they just won't update. And
Right.
then when they finally do, they're like, why do I have like a tons of update? Why it's taking all day to update my machine? I'm never doing this again. You know, like,
well, Adam, you, to your point, the other week or whatever, I was complaining to you that as soon as I, you know, open up Windows or boot up Windows and open up Call of Duty, Windows pops up a box saying it through the full screen, over the full screen game, and says, "Hey, I got updates. Do you want to do it now?" And I was complaining to you, and you said something to the effect of, "Well, when do you want it to tell you? Because all you do is play games, and then you shut the computer down." So
yeah,
it's like
you'll never update if it doesn't make you.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I don't want to like make this sound like, you know, we fixed that as well, but we fixed that as well.
Did you fix that as well, Alan?
Yeah. So we added a thing. People complained that snaps auto update without their knowledge, so we added a thing where you could defer it. And I have mine set to do it between 4 and 7 in the morning. Now I'm actually only sometimes got my laptop switched on between 4 and 7 in the morning. I mean, it's going to be 4 a.m. soon, and my laptop will probably update. But typically, I don't want it to do it while I'm in the middle of working. So, you know, you could set a time and it will just do it at that time. You could do it over the weekend. You could do it late at night or at lunchtime when you're away from your keyboard. We also added a thing, which is experimental, but it's coming, which is don't update the app while it's running. So if you're running Firefox and you're using Netflix, you don't want the browser to update. Or if you're using LibreOffice and you're giving a presentation, you don't want LibreOffice to update while you're in the middle of presenting something, or, you know, that kind of thing. So it's hard. And these are all like, you know, each person has their own individual take on what it is. And we try to add control so that you can, you know, have control over when your system updates. But sometimes you kind of need to just force people to update, because if you don't, as Adam says, they won't do it.
I'm going to get to Big Pod and Shickle in 1 minute. Popey, is there any plans on having a GUI for the Snap interface?
I just saw the DistroTube ask that. What for managing like?
Well,
the
like you're
update
talking
times
about
and-
update times and whether to update or not. Is it? I mean, is there going to be or is everything going to have to continue to be through the command line?
That's a good point. There isn't one for that, but there's no reason there couldn't be one. Like it's the kind of place it should go is in system settings, I think. But then if we do that, then that's GNOME specific. What if you're running KDE or XFCE? And so there should be a setting in there as well. The team are actually all in Frankfurt next week, and so I'm going to lob this over the wall to them to discuss and come up with an idea for how we can expose these kind of settings to a user so you could just press buttons. That's
Yes.
a brilliant idea. I hadn't even thought about it. It's a great idea.
Can I make another suggestion just real quick? I think it would be cool if they can find a way in apt to have it where if it's downloading multiple packages to update simultaneously, it go ahead and install one that's already done downloading while it's downloading other stuff simultaneously. So it's a little bit faster. I understand this would be an issue if you're doing something that's downloading dependencies at the same time, but I think it would be a cool idea. It would save time. And in today's multi-threaded world, that's probably something that's doable. But just an idea.
I'm sure the apt people have thought about this kind of stuff. There must be some reason they haven't done that. There must be a reason they don't like, a library starts downloading. Well, you might as well start installing that. I think it might be hard to do because of the life cycle of apt and the way it goes through those stages of, you figure out what you want to download, then you download it, then you unpack it, then you and each of it has a stage. I think to mix them might be hard. I don't know. And how many do you do at once?
For me, it will range anywhere from about 5 to 100, 200, depending on.
Do I want 100 copies of gzip unpacking stuff at once? Probably not.
Well, it wouldn't be at once though. That's the idea.
Well, it would if it's downloaded. Libraries are quite small. If it downloads 20 libraries and then spawns 20 copies of gzip, that's going to kill your system immediately. I don't know. I don't want to design this because I don't work on apt, but someone else probably could.
All right, Big Pod.
I am a big proponent of auto updates. While I normally disable them for myself, since I not that I like control, but I sometimes like to see that happening and just bask in its majesty. But for when I administer other people, I like to turn auto updates on because most of the time they don't update systems. Even auto updated OSs like Windows have seen few months old updates because they somehow found a way to disable it, and that can prove catastrophic if there is a security issue. So for such people, I try to enforce auto updates however I can. But for myself, I like to watch it update.
All right, Schickle.
So I really appreciate everybody's insight on this because this is definitely something that it's hard to think of it from other people's perspectives. So this is really insightful. In regards to what Thomas was saying with the bandwidth being used and things like that, I've noticed that at least on Windows, when updates are happening, it seems like they get throttled while I'm doing other things. And as soon as I stop doing them, the updates ramp up to full speed. So I think perhaps there are ways to check for things that are happening elsewhere on the system and then just kind of slow down things that are happening in the background. Because I know that it happens on Windows. So I'm sure that that kind of mechanism is possible through probably systemd somehow. And that might help avoid weird throttling issues.
I know we check for metered connections. So if you're on a 3G connection, we don't update. And
that's awesome.
And in Network Manager, there is an option where you can say this is a metered connection. There's a tick box. You can do it with the command line as well. I think there's a key somewhere that you could poke that says this is a metered. So if you're connected via Wi-Fi to your phone, like Network Manager might not be able to figure out that that's actually a metered connection. So you can actually say this is metered, and then we throttle back and we try not to do the updates over a metered connection. But I like the idea of like slowing down the download rate while you're clearly busy doing something else. That would be awesome. Having an adaptive download rate would be good.
Anybody else want to get in on this topic?
Yeah, I had an idea or a thought on the installing packages while downloading packages. If someone had different repos installed, like I do for audio stuff, I use KX Studio. Um, if there were some packages being downloaded, it's like it has to do with dependencies, but it also has to do with whether or not that repo, that source is available. Because I've had other things where like I just have a script that does update and then upgrade. Well, if it can't reach one of them, it will just not do it. It just won't update. I have to go in and fix that thing, or at least I've run into that in the past. So I think it's mostly just a way of securing that, like, okay, we need all the stuff to do all the things. That way we have everything together. That was my thought on that.
This is where I think the universal packaging comes in. So we talked about snaps, and you look at Flatpak, and then maybe what Elementary is trying to do with their app store. I think the idea of we're all sort of getting to that idea of where there's some centralized management, and it's not necessarily based on a PPA that's in your sources file, or it's not something from the AUR on Arch, or there's some central way to do that makes it easier not only for the users to get those updates, but as Alan was saying, for publishers to put content out somewhere centrally, so that when an update happens, we keep referencing mobile mobile operating systems and those stores. That's exactly how they work. The publishers are pushing out those versions to those centralized sources, and then we're getting those updates. It would
Yep.
certainly be nice to have some control to say, because on your phone you can set, do I automatically want to update or not, and it'll always prompt you with new updates, and so you can choose to update or not.
Oh
That
yeah,
would be nice.
it'll prompt me right in the middle of playing Minecraft on my phone, and it's like, hey, I got creepers and stuff blowing my things up, and you want me to update? Come on.
Well, on Android at least, it'll only prompt me when I plug it in. So for what it's worth, anyway, whatever the mechanism is, or how are the controls that are there, I think that solves a lot of these questions. Something I heard several people say, which is certainly true in my life, is that people will not update. If you give them a choice, they will always just say no, click away. I'm guilty of it myself. When a dialogue pops up and I'm doing something, I'll dismiss it and won't even read it, and then I'll go, "Oh man, I wonder if that was important." Because it might
What
have
about
been.
on shutdown? It would be neat. I
Maybe.
actually like some apps. When I shut my system down, like Carla will be like, it'll actually pause the shutdown process and say, hey, do you want to close Carla? And it'd be neat if when everything closes down, the OS would say, hey, there's some updates. Would you like to do those first, and then we'll shut down? That would be really awesome, because then it'd be like, oh, this is convenient. I can just let it do the thing. And
Well, I think there's
Yeah.
there's many different thought ways on that, and I don't think you're going to ever get people to agree on what would be neat, because to be honest with you, Scrap, I think that would drive me insane, because the one thing I want to do when I'm shutting my computer down, I want to shut down. I don't want to have it ask me 1,000 questions of what do you want to update, or that's the reason I'm shutting down, because I'm done with the computer and I want to go. I don't want to have to answer questions. But Barbara, go ahead.
Windows did that for a while at the end. And you'd sit there and just go on and go on. And like like when I was running Windows and I was working, I didn't want to leave that going when I walked out the door. But I think Windows did that for a while. I don't know if they still do, because I haven't used it in so long.
What do you think
But
about
they
it on
were.
Linux, Barb? Would you be a fan of like a automatic update for programs and stuff like that?
Okay, the way I've got mine set up, because with Ubuntu, it actually, I think it tells me that there are updates, and I think it downloads them and says, do you want to install? And and I get a little window. And like with my Mac, it just tells me there's a notification. Do you want to download and install, or just download and install later? And I just get a little notification, you have updates. And that I think is fine. I'm one of those people who will run the updates. But yeah, I wouldn't mind it with, with Linux. Some stuff I let it automatically update. I think I have it set for, what is it, like security stuff, Alan? That's how I've got mine set up. And then everything else is an option. Do I want to do it now or just sits there until I say update?
All right. Nate, you have a different take on this, Nate?
Well, not entirely, but so I've always thought about my computer as being like a kind of appliance, like maybe not more of a complex one, like a car. And I know that every 3 months I got to get the oil changed on my car. And if I don't, I'm the moron that didn't do it properly. So I personally prefer if my computer just says, hey, there are updates, then I know to change the oil or the packages rather, and progress forward. And it seems like that should be how people use their computers, because I don't have my Android auto update either. I don't trust it to do that. I will select, I want to see notifications, and then I will commit to those updates when the time arises. And I think that there's maybe a mindset that needs to be adjusted here with people. I mean, be responsible for the equipment that you own. That would be my take on it. And if you're not,
that's the problem. If people see it as an appliance is like a microwave oven. I never do software updates on a microwave oven. An appliance is like a TV.
Smart microwave.
Go on.
I was saying.
I was going to say, so my refrigerator, I have to change a filter on that, just in case there's lead in the water. Though and I know because it tells me it's time to change the filter, or hey, your filter needs to be changed here real soon. And so I'm very vigilant about making sure things, because that's more of a complex appliance.
Those are more
than a
mechanical.
microwave.
That's mechanical. That's like changing the fan or cleaning the fan in your laptop. That's not changing the firmware in your fridge.
But I do that. No, you're right. I'm just saying, but it's similar. I mean,
I want to ask you the bit where you said I turn off auto updates on my phone because I don't trust it. What don't you trust? What's going to happen? You're going to get what? It not update, or it does update. What's the thing that you don't trust?
So I've had again, this is like, I'm becoming a bit of an old man curmudgeon. Get off my lawn. I put my elbow in Windex.
Welcome to my
when I think
world.
that hurts. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so I've had applications either disappear on me from Android because some service agreement has changed. So I've had actually applications disappear. I've had applications just stop working. And so before I agree to any updates on my applications, I will go through and make sure that there's nothing fiddly or that concerns me. Because if so, then I'm going to create like there's an application called Tricorder. It's like 10 years old now. It only kind of mostly functions in Android because things have shifted. But CBS sued somebody who made this free software, and so they had to pull it off. Had I not made a backup of that, I would have lost that piece of software, and I still use it today for like acoustic checking and some other like accelerometer stuff. It's just a nerdy thing. So so I'm always concerned about losing something. I guess is my issue.
That sounds like you've been hurt once, and you're holding on to that as like. How often has that happened since then?
On Android?
Yeah.
It's not really happened. But then again, the number of applications I run are so few now that I don't care about any of them. So, but also I want to make sure that, it doesn't start. I run Lineage OS, and I choose when to initiate that update as well. So, because I can't just have it do it whenever it feels like it. It's got to be a time of my choosing when it's not going to interrupt my life if, that blows up.
Yep.
So, and then like my update day is Sunday. That's when I update my machines. So Sunday is my update day because I'm not actively doing anything that requires for the most part, my machines. So that's kind of when I do that. So,
Shickle.
I'll put my elbow back in Windex.
So, I think kind of something that once again the mobile market has done pretty well is separating things that are like critical system component updates from package updates from like the App Store or Play Store or whatever store they call it now. And if your phone's going to actually like shut off for an update, or your computer's going to actually need to restart, or it's going to update something that a lot of other things depend on, it makes sense that it's something separate from, let's say, an application update, or I don't know, like a settings update. Like Alan mentioned with the not updating while it's running, like I had my Android phone out and I was typing and my keyboard updated while I was using it and it just went away and I had no idea where it went until I got the notification that it had been updated and I was like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. So I feel like it's a hard balance to strike in regards to not disturbing a user, but also making sure that the user stays up to date because one, it's just not safe to be connected to the internet with software that's how as long as you give the user the option, that is as long as they will take to ever update anything if they do at all. So I feel like it's a security issue, one, and then you have the issue of convenience, which is, does something just stop working for a moment and then come back, or does it bother me, or so like it's really hard balance to strike and there are so many ways to go at it, so like I don't really know what the ideal solution would be, but it's a
Ubuntu
lot
has
of corners.
struggled with that for many years, trying to find that balance. That you take one step and people don't like that, and then you try another step and they don't like that either. And yeah, that's a hard thing. Aris?
For my computer, when I install a new distro, like the first thing I do is disable auto updates. That's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who does that. But I find it very annoying, especially at the beginning, because I'm trying to install software and the thing's locked up by the auto updater, and then it wants me to go through the thing, and it just gets in my way. And I would just have a command. I do a script. It just lets me update my Flatpak, update my Snap, update my repos, and do it when I want to. I understand why it's there, obviously, because I know people say they're going to take care of it. I don't think so. People will never update by themselves for the most part.
Not usually, dude. Not usually. Big Pod.
I want to comment on the thing Nathan said about the whole why people change, let's say, a filter in their fridge and not do updates. It's basically because the filter is a tangible. It's something mechanical, something tangible. They see it, so it is a lot more logical for them to change it than something that exists as a thought, as something not tangible on their computer, like software. They won't update software. They're not bothered because it's not tangible. They don't see it. So they need something they can see. That's why they need update notifications or even better auto updates. Same is there's a couple of different points I could make for, like, say, human health. It's same thing, like how people, something that is tangible, like when they're hurt, how quickly they will go to doctor when compared to when they have, let's say, mental issues. That is basically the same thing. When it's tangible, they would like to take care of it more quickly than something that's not tangible.
The flip side is, from the developer's point of view, if there are thousands or millions of users out there running old versions of software and not moving forward, then that can present a significant support burden to you as a company or you as a developer, because you have to carry on supporting those old releases. There's an update that's coming out, I think, in May, that Tesla are doing to the cars, and you have to update, otherwise you lose access to further updates, or you potentially lose access to further updates, because they're having to maintain this old infrastructure for all these cars that are running on old software, and they want everyone to move forward so they don't have to keep all these legacy servers kicking around maintaining these cars that are out in the field that users are refusing to update because, like Nate said, they might lose something. They might lose access to a feature. So it is a real problem, and it's a problem for the developer just as it is for the user.
Barbara.
To the updates, I think, who was it who was saying, Aris was saying that he does them all manually, but we're looking at it from we who know what we're doing, but you also have to look at the majority of people who are using whatever operating system it is. Are they that attuned to what they're doing? No, they're like some of my friends who go, oh, I haven't backed my machine up in a year. That's a lot of them. So you at least they should have like the security updates automatically going in. And with some of them, it's like have everything update. It really, you've got to consider the audience that you have. Me, I'm very, very diligent in making sure that all my systems are updated. But the average person, I don't think they are, but you've got to take them into account because they're the majority of users. I don't think most users are like us.
Yep. Well, I think we kind of played that out to the end of it. It was a good conversation, but I think we'll move on. Eric, you wanted to bring up the follow-ups to the emails last week?
Yeah, so if you remember last week, we had someone write in and ask a question about gaming on a laptop and having a budget, and we had talked about maybe an external GPU enclosure, and they had written back just to basically to just say, thank you for, for giving me an answer. And I posted a thread on the forum, and I'm having a hard time finding it at the moment, but so more or less that they, appreciated that we went through that and discussed it. And I swear I'll find it, but there was a follow-up, and I posted it in the forum. I just wanted to mention that number one, that they appreciated we did it, and number two, that there was a follow-up.
And
so if anyone wanted to continue that discussion, to check out the forum, I will find the link and put it in the chat.
Yep, and there was actually a follow-up from the other email or comment from Very Blam. He gave, on number one, the network manager app that's overwriting it. He was talking about I forget exactly what we were talking about the first one. The second one was, I will look into what was mentioned. If not, he might attempt to write a script for trying to change his config. And the third one was for his SSH. I'll keep the service disabled and double check my firewall as suggested. So he wanted to just say, hey, thanks again for remembering to talk about it and basically answer his questions. So you guys did a great job. Awesome. We also did get a few contact emails for distro submissions, and I'm sorry, Big Pod, we can't put Gen 2 in. Big Pod suggested we put Gen 2 in the distro challenge. That's not going to happen, dude. That's just, I'm sorry, we just can't do that. Okay. There was also a few other suggestions. Q4OS was asked to be added to the distro challenge, so I did put that into the random distro generator script. So, and there was another one, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I did add that one as well. So send in your submissions if you want to see us try a distro. Send in your submissions, and we will see how it goes. I do have a question for you guys. So on one of the machines in the house, we're going to put Ubuntu Mate back on. Not my machine, one of the other machines. And the question I have is, we're in February, late February, early March here now. Tomorrow will be March. Is the daily builds stable enough to put on this machine? Or, I mean, so on this machine, I can't use 1910 because forgive me, but I forget something with 1910 is not working. One of the scenarios, it's not working with the sound or something. So I can't go with Ubuntu Mate 1910. So my choices are install Ubuntu Mate 1804. 1904, I guess I could install, the daily builds, or just kind of wait it out and See how it goes.
I say go for broke, install 2004. Just do it. And then you can report bugs.
Yeah.
Alan's going to have an opinion on this, but I'm going to say if it's a machine you're not running, maybe it's not the best idea right now. And the main reason being, we just went through feature freeze, right? And I would say give it a week or two for some of that churn. But I personally have not had issues running a pre-release version when it gets close to release, even like as far back as a month. But we're just, in my opinion, because I've been checking the dailies, I think we're just a little early to maybe throw that out on a random system.
What's it
free to
going to be
disagree.
used for? What's it going to be doing?
It's not a video production machine, but it is one of the family members' main computers. So web browsing, email, stuff like that.
So the standard answer is no. It's not production ready. It's not a released version of Ubuntu. So no, of course you shouldn't. That said, this machine I'm talking to you on, that one and that one and that one over there you can't see, are all running 2004. But I work for Canonical and I can phone up Martin Wimpress and shout at him if any of them break.
Right. Have you found any bugs on them at all, Alan?
Yeah, but they're like get your UI bug or
Right.
yeah, nothing that's like, oh my god, the computer jumped off my desk and killed my cat or something. It's they're all pretty innocuous. But again, you shouldn't use it. It's not stable.
Bill,
I
go ahead.
believe.
I'm sorry, Colin.
That's all.
No, go ahead, Colin.
I believe the software boutique wouldn't be enabled on 2004 either, would it? If you're looking at ease of use in that respect.
That's a good point.
Well, I may be able to shed some light onto a specific distribution you're talking about.
Well, thank you, Bill. Go ahead.
So, like Alan said, 2004 is a pre-beta, even though there's no technical betas anymore. It's still alpha state. I have a lot of machines running 2004. If you are able to be there and help a little bit, 99% of the time, you will be good to go. There probably will not be any major changes, but you don't know. There could be a massive bug that gets found in the next 4 weeks that causes a huge respin. I helped find the bug, but there was a respin right at the end of 1910, right when it got ready to get pushed out as a release. There was a respin because I found a bug, and it was a major one. So that can happen, but you can have that happen with anything. There can be an apt update that comes out tomorrow and messes something up. You could get a RPM that comes out if you're running Fedora. So there is a thing, if you're going to run it in a business aspect, probably with your main $1 million system, no. But if you're going to have a chance, if something breaks, to get on a computer and maybe type apt-get update, apt-get upgrade, you can do it. It's not a problem. I'm running it right now. I'm actually installing today's ISO test, but while we're doing all this stuff. But I would encourage it because I find bugs, I post bugs. None of them have made the system a complete failure. So it's sort of, I would say go ahead and do it, especially if 1910 doesn't work, but it is tricky because something could break. I'd do it, but that's just me.
That's the difference, right?
I have been tinkering, I guess you could say, with Ubuntu 2004 since the next version of Jogger OS is going to be based off of it. And I have had it in VM after VM after VM, and I've had it on both my laptop and this thing. And I haven't noticed any serious bugs. I've only noticed a couple new features here and there, which I am really liking. I'd honestly say go for it if you can get hold of yourself a daily ISO. But, you know, I don't know how it's going to perform on your hardware, so take my opinion with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you guys have like no help.
Rocco, the easiest answer is if there's no, you have a backup, put 2004 on there, make sure all the hardware works, make sure the sound issue you have is functioning. And if all that checks out on that initial sanity check, you're probably good. If it doesn't, then look at another option. But
well, what I was trying to get away with is, or get away from, it's Ubuntu Mate specifically, and maybe it's just me and my experience with it, but in my experience with Ubuntu Mate, usually, like if you have all your config files, like say I have my whole home folder backed up, and I put my home folder, like I reinstall, and I put my home folder back in, reboot. On most Linux distros, everything comes back up exactly the way it was before I started. With Ubuntu Mate, it doesn't do that every time. It's not that the programs aren't there, or it mostly is the UI where the panel is not. It's basically the generic panel for an Ubuntu Mate install. So specific settings like where the menu is, and then that doesn't always come back. So I was trying to get away from installing it and then reinstalling it in a month or two when 2004 comes out.
Well, I mean, the panel, you can go in and we can walk later. I can walk you through how you can save the panel config. But if the panel is a thing, we can fix that later in 2 minutes.
Well, it's not that you can't fix it, though. I mean, I do fix it. Like after it's installed, I do put it back the way it was. But what I'm saying is it doesn't initially come back. So you have to do a couple extra steps to get it back. And I, like I said, I was just kind of like trying to get away from doing that. So
if that actually happens, that would be a great opportunity to file a bug. Because I mean, that's serious. That's an important. That's not a joke. That's a serious thing, because some people really do that. They bring their, if they're doing their dot files somewhere, and they bring them down. If the panel gets reconfigured, and I'm not seeing that, but you might be seeing it. If you file a bug, then we can look at it and say, oh, we need to make this little change in the config to fix that. If we don't know about it, no one will ever fix anything that's not it. If it's unknown, no one can ever fix it.
So I don't think that's a bug that. Sorry, Alan.
No, okay.
That's not a bug though, is it? Because you're using a /home. You're using the same /home from the previous one, right?
Yeah.
So I would believe that sometimes the configs of the /home would change slightly from one version to another. So
well, it's not just
difference.
versions, Colin. I could install the same version, and it just doesn't. I would say it's probably 75 to 85% chance it doesn't come back exactly the way it was.
Okay, same version as well. Okay, all right.
So, right, I've said don't do it, but let's say you did do it and you put 2004 on there.
Hypothetically,
and you are not around when it all goes horribly wrong for whatever reason, because an update broke or whatever happened. Software has bugs, and this is not released as a stable release yet. Something goes wrong, and the person who's operating that computer has a bad time, and they blame you, and you have a bad time trying to debug it and fix it, and you blame us. Or you come on this show and tell the whole world that 2004, did a dump on your carpet or whatever it did. You're not going to be happy, and you're going to express how unhappy you are. Now, it doesn't matter how much you caveat that with, it's not a stable release. I used it before it was out. There will be some people whose message that they take away from that is 2004 is not good enough. This guy tried it and it's not good enough, even if it's before release, right? Which is why we're always so super cautious, because all it takes is for someone who uses it before release, finds something that goes wrong, ends up spending a large amount of their time, gets frustrated, and then convinces other people not to use Ubuntu because of that experience. That's what I'm trying to avoid. Now, I'm not saying that you would do that, and I'm not saying that you would express yourself in that way, but sometimes people read things into stuff that,
Yep.
yeah, it's the internet.
Right.
Well, and to Bill's point, right? I mean, I guess what I was trying to say is that if we are trying it, it's a completely different audience than just a random person grabbing a daily build and maybe not understanding what that means and not understanding what to expect.
Yep.
I've been running daily builds every week or so throughout the entire 2004 development process, just so I can see the progression. And if I find something, I report it. But in many cases, there are already things they know about. They haven't gotten to it yet. So I think in some ways it's good to again, that's why I was saying feature freeze for me is a critical time, because that's when they kind of say, this is what's in this release. Now we're just going to refine it and fix the problems. That's when I like to jump in and actually start looking at bugs and things like that. So, Alan, that happened this week, right? Okay.
I mean, I installed the daily 2 days ago on a machine, and I was going to use it in a video, and I installed it, and the very first thing I got was a crash dialog. Like the first thing after booting the thing up, I get a crash dialog, and I thought, oh god. And then I sit back and think, well, this is a daily, it's not the final, and I clicked the button to say send this to Canonical. And I click that button, and a further box pops up and says, "Yeah, we know about this." If you
Right.
click the button, it'll open the bug report in a browser. Somebody's already done the bug report. Don't worry about it. So someone like Bill has already gone through the effort of clicking that button and then filling in the fields and saying, "I was doing an install, and then I got the crash prompt." Right? But what if the browser crashes for your friend or colleague, and it's a blocker for them doing their work or their playtime or whatever it might
Yep.
be. That's the worry.
I guess my point was, as someone who's interested in testing and knowing what you're getting into, don't be afraid of using the 2004 stuff at this point. But don't be surprised if you, like Alan said, you get bugs. It's
Right.
just that's where they are in development right now, and that's where they should be. So,
Well, I think that it's probably best if I wait for this specific machine after hearing all of you guys talk about it. Yeah, it'd be cool to have 2004 install and then not have to worry about upgrading or anything like that. But why run the risk of giving that person a bad taste of bugs that they don't need to see? So
yeah. Hey,
all right.
Rocco.
Yeah.
There's a new face down there.
Rob's.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I cannot complain. I was invited here by one of my friends, Scrapjaw. I actually haven't said the name out loud, so it's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, we kind of know Scrapjaw. He's been around for a while. We like him. We keep him.
You should. He's a good one to keep.
So what's going on, brother? Anything?
No, I'm just here for the fun. I used to be a part of a Linux community, Linux distro community, actually, from years ago. They had a big forum, and it was just a great place where you could gather around and talk about your favorite distribution, some cool mod you were doing, or your complete self build of Gentoo. So this is just a nice place to be in.
So, favorite distro?
Oh, that's hard. That is difficult. The one I generally go to is probably a Mint, a Linux Mint that I would use personally. But to be honest, the one I abuse mostly is Linux Lite.
Really?
A friend of mine made it a long time ago. It runs super well on absolute garbage machines, which is the ones that people say, "Hey, can you do anything with this?" And that's when a Linux distribution goes on in my world for new users, is PCs are about to throw away. So that's always been my go-to. It's been really stable, and I've had a lot of script issues using other distributions outside of the Ubuntu range due to simple things like lack of Thunar. So
all right. So what are you running right now?
Me, it depends on the systems. I go around. I have plenty of different systems. I'm a I used to work for a research and development for an internet service provider, so I'm probably running Mint on my some of my daily drivers. I have a couple laptops I use. I run a podcast for aquariums, so that's generally what I use for a guest sitting there that wants to use a computer to look up is something that's running Mint.
Nice.
Otherwise, just a lot of Raspberry Pis around the house.
Awesome.
Podcast for aquariums. That's cool. What is that?
The Aquarium Guys podcast. We're a podcast that literally every episode we're trying to focus on a new topic about the aquarium hobby. And how I actually met Scrapjaw was he joined my podcast. I don't know if I'm assuming he's a fish enthusiast, but we had an episode on automating aquariums with a Raspberry Pi.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Reef Pi. It's a fantastic project, and we had a special guest on that actually made a hardware module to go on the Pi to make it even easier. So it was a fun episode, and I just excited to hang out with some Linux folk.
Cool. I'm gonna stick it in the YouTube chat. So folks can check it
Fantastic.
out. Yeah.
Well, dude, you are welcome here anytime.
Appreciate that.
Well, I'm going to say it again. And I know that, you guys will whatever say, you're an idiot. But I was just looking at the Raspberry Pi page today. And they lowered the price, I guess, on the 4 gig version. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, $35.
They lowered the price on the 2 gig version, Roger.
Was it the 2 gig? So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it and I'm like, what would I use a Raspberry Pi for? And I'm sitting there trying to think, and I still can't come up with a good enough reason to say, yeah, I want that.
All right.
Just cause.
You got to do Pi-hole.
So Pi-hole would be a great option for a Raspberry Pi like that. If you're going to use it for anything else, I would definitely get the 4 gig model because I got the Rock Pro 64 4 gig model. And
what are you going to use it for, Thomas?
What do you think I'm going to use it for, Rocco? I use it for Jogger OS development because I'm trying to get it on ARM later. Other than that, I partially bought the Rock Pro 64 because I want to see if I can stick a dedicated GPU inside of it. Hint, yes, you can. Just I guess it's got to be low powered and you got to compile your own kernel. Anyway, if you do get a Raspberry Pi and you use it for anything other than like a Pi-hole or something like that, you're really going to want to get the 4 gig model. Because I noticed when I'm using the Rock Pro 64, mine has 4 gigs. And every time I launch Firefox, it immediately goes to close to 2 gigs and just slowly creeps up to like closer to 3 gigs. And it kind of chugs a little bit. I can definitely use it. It's just not the best experience.
Dude,
So
even this MacBook that I'm on right now, when I got it from my old pastor, it had 4 gigs of RAM in it. And even with a dual core with hyperthread, it would chug with Firefox. So you definitely, and I put an extra 4 gigs in it. You definitely need at least 4 for anything you're going to do like that.
Yeah, and if it's going to be running for a long time, getting the 4 gig model ain't going to hurt anyway, because what Linux does is, so if you think about it, having a bunch of just completely empty memory that you're not using on your system is kind of inefficient, because what you could do with that memory is load in a bunch of libraries that you use really often, and that way you don't have to load them in later whenever you launch an application. If I'm not mistaken, the kernel actually has something called uRead-ahead, which does this. So by having a 4 gig model, you can load in more of that stuff.
I think you're suggesting things that Rocco absolutely 100% would not do.
Probably not.
I mean, he wouldn't do it anyway because the kernel does it itself.
No, I mean using a Raspberry Pi as a desktop computer.
Fair.
Yeah. Could use it as like a home security thing if you had some IP cameras.
Well, see, that's the thing. I look around and I see people saying about, home security, smart, like smart lights or whatever it may be, but I just don't have any of that stuff. Like I don't have any cameras, outside, inside. I don't have any smart devices.
Just cause.
So you can use any old webcam if you want to just mess around with something. I forget the OS I put on my old Raspberry Pi I had a camera set up.
Raspbian.
I forget what it was. Well, it was like
See-
Raspbian, but there was a package that you could install, and it was a whole suite. And in any webcam that
Scrap.
was either IP or a USB, you could just plug it in. And
But
it worked.
Scrap, you're talking to a guy that has like no creativity whatsoever. So I got this clean slate, and I just, you're like, you said get a webcam and just play with it. Well, I didn't even know what to do to play with it. Like
You're talking to a guy that the only game he plays is Call of Duty.
right. I mean, see, Adam knows. I mean,
Okay. So my suggestion isn't going to go down well then.
What's
My
that?
suggestion is to build one of these, which is an
Yes.
arcade cabinet.
An arcade machine.
now
That'd be
see, that's
great.
not bad.
Yeah.
And in there, inside the back, is a Raspberry Pi on the back door, just there.
That's dope.
And that's what runs it.
Yep. And it's got a battery as well, so this is not plugged into anything.
Well,
It's-
see,
Now that's
the thing
cool.
about the thing about Raspberry Pis, if you're you're interested in getting into it, it's just like me when I first got into Linux. What was the first thing I did? I said, "Well, I'm interested in getting into Linux. I want to learn about it." I went to the forums. I went to YouTube videos, do all that kind of stuff. So I mean, dude, I don't know if you've done any of this stuff, but do the research, and you can find amazing ideas. You can make little robots out of them, and this, that, and the other thing. There's so many things you can do with the Raspberry Pi. It all depends on what.
Can the robots
You
play
would
Call
wanna
of Duty?
You can make a bot that'll play Call of Duty.
Make an aimbot.
There you go, an aimbot.
Nate, what did you want to bring up?
But that's my point is there is the ability, the things that you can do with the Raspberry Pi are, I don't want to say endless, but there's a lot of stuff you can do, and it all the just do don't go out and just do it, as I was saying, just don't go out and buy it, just cause, but do the research and then find out if there's something that does spark your interest, buy the Pi, and then go from there. And then Nate, I think Nate is itching to say something over here.
I am. So Rocco,
Yes.
I noticed that open sign behind you is activated and deactivated manually.
Yes, it
Why
is.
do it manually when you can do it with the Raspberry Pi?
That is an awesome suggestion. I would love that.
Nate to the
Okay,
rescue.
let's work on it.
Let's work on it. Let's do it.
You
That
can
would be
even
great.
have.
Otherwise, has anybody
YouTube
talked about
API
Pi
to
hole?
do it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Everyone said Pi hole.
Yeah, Pi hole.
immediately.
Everyone said Pi hole. Yeah.
All right, just want to make sure that was covered.
It was.
All right, let's
Looks
work
like
on
Ron
that,
Spark.
Nate. We're gonna do it. Okay. Bill, you want to say something?
Duh. I was just going to say, Rocker, there's a lot of things you could do. So if you wanted to run a media server, if you just run it to connect an extra TV up and run LibreElec and run it as basically just something you could watch videos, we can put a Plex server up on it. People have mentioned
Cody.
Pi-hole.
Cody's another one.
Nate has talked about doing a sign automation. There's just so much. And one of the best things with a Pi, you throw it out there, connect it to your network, and it's a great tool to learn the command line. Because all you're doing is you're imaging a SD card. If you ruin it with your command line functions, you just rewrite the SD card. You're not really losing anything. It is a great tool to learn with. Family members can play with it, learn so many things. And if you break it, you just flash it, boom, in your back. I
Here's
mean,
another
it's
idea.
less than $50, $60 complete. It's awesome. It's an awesome learning tool.
The Pi for the open sign sounds like a great idea. Go and try that. That'll be the first thing.
And the other thing you
Then we'll go from there.
Overkill.
is like if you're out of town, like one of the things that happens around here every once in a while when the wind picks up, like our power will go out. You could get a little battery bank that has through charging and hook it up to it. And if the power goes out, that thing could just say, hey, there's no power. Or if you have it hooked up to like I don't know if you have one of those battery backup, those APC things, you could do that. And then it could send you a text, or you can put Telegram CLI on it and Telegram can send you a message and say, hey, this is happening. It can even send a picture or a file. You can do that with it.
I used a bog standard webcam with mine, a USB, just a C920, plugged it in, and I made a little project where if you press the doorbell button, and it's just a little Wi-Fi attached doorbell, it's like $5. You press that button, the webcam takes a photo and then sends it to me as a message on Telegram. So I've got a little channel, and as soon as someone presses the button, I get
made it
a
ring.
photo. Yeah, it's really cute. It's really cute. And that's
He
just
has
a little
himself
Raspberry
a
Pi.
safe ring.
So Rocco, the question is, what can you do with a pie? It's what can't you do with a pie? I mean,
Eat it.
although I do like the
Call of
the-
Duty.
the joke in the chat where it's like you should probably stay away from a smart home. That might not be a good idea for you.
Thanks, Handsome. Thank you very much for that one. True, but wow, just wow.
He's
All right,
gonna crash it.
all right. We are out of time, so that's gonna be it for this show. But everybody gets a last word. So, Eris, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream. Thank you everybody who makes the stream possible. Rocco, don't go with anything but LCS.
All right, Thomas, last word.
Well, thank you for allowing me back on the show this week. I'm sorry I wasn't on to give my review of Qubes OS. I'll just do that next week. Not a big deal. I wasn't able to give it much try this week, though, because I got a little present from our little dark one. And I've already thrown Linux on it. Jogger OS, of course. So we'll see how
Nice.
that's going. It's nice and hot right now. So, yeah.
Big Pod, last word.
Thanks you guys for watching. Thank you guys for having me. And I might actually make a video about installing Gentoo, since I saw a lot of people being really sad that Gentoo didn't go on the list.
No, I'm sorry, Big Pod. Gentoo didn't
I'm
go.
gonna
on the
show you
list.
how easy it is. I'm gonna show you how easy it is. It isn't hard. It's just hard, but more detailed.
You're right. Exactly. Eric, last word.
Big Pod could team up with Surge, and we could break YouTube with.
No,
with
I'm
Gentoo.
gonna make it a little bit more simple and logical than he does. He goes overboard and really technical. A little bit more normal without specialized kernel on that, so it will be for normal people.
Okay. Hey, I'm interested. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks, Rocco, for doing this. As always, I really appreciate it. This is my weekly get together with my nerdy friends, and glad to see all of you here. Thank you for hanging out, and I will see you next week.
Tony, last word.
Thanks for doing it, Rocco, as always. Interesting conversations going on. I look forward to next week, and take care, everyone. Till then.
Daniel, last word.
Rocco, thanks for the stream. Awesome as always. Thanks for everybody who helps out with all this. Great conversation. Looking forward to giving Qubes OS a run this week. So until then, have a great week.
Colin, last word.
Yep. Thanks for the show, Rocco, and the help from Eric. And who else was helping today? Just Eric, was it? And Nathan, wasn't it? Maybe.
No,
Wasn't
just
Nathan?
Eric.
Just Eric today. Okay, yeah.
I'm
Anyway,
helpless.
looking forward to maybe getting stuck into Qubes a little bit more this week if I can, and see what amazing things I can do with it. So install some applications or something like that. So I'm interested to see how that works. There will be no video because I cannot record the screen. So thanks, and everyone have a nice week.
Popey, last word.
Thanks for having me, Rocco. It's 3 a.m., so I need some sleep.
Sorry.
now.
Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. You didn't design this time zone. It's fine. So if any of you do have some time, it would be really awesome before April to try out 2004. Try it out on a VM or try it out on an old laptop. And if you do discover any bugs, then report them. That would be really helpful. If you have trouble reporting them, see my YouTube channel. I'll tell you how to do it, or just PM me on Telegram. That's what everyone else does. When you find a bug, and I'll put you in the right direction.
Shickle.
That that is me. Hi, thank you guys. You guys are awesome, and I'm super excited for 2004 because like this is like GNOME is so much better now, and it's just gonna be rock solid for people. So heck yeah, let's go test that stuff.
Mr. Grubbs.
Hey, thanks for the stream. Thanks for everybody coming in and all that. Reminder: wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Wear a mask if you're sick. Come on, people. Let's not make this any worse than it has to be.
Jason, last word.
Again, thank you everybody who participates in the show. Rocco and Eric for getting the show up and running. And Rocco, I look forward to seeing that Raspberry Pi controlled sign.
Me too. Barb, last word.
I want to thank you, obviously, Rocco, for this is always fun every week. And remind people, please update your systems.
Very nice. Nate, sir, last word.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's nice to see all my favorite nerds out there, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Bill, last word.
Thank you, Rocco. Thank you for everyone that makes good, critical, but not negative content and puts it out there on the internet and YouTube. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for Scrapjaw for putting out some good outro music, and test 2004.
Dig it. Robs, this is a last word for you. It's your chance to get in whatever you didn't want to, or whatever you want to say that you didn't get a chance to, or plug whatever you want to plug.
Well, thanks again. I'm glad to see that Gentoo is still kicking strong. And if you're going to do Raspberry Pi, go big or go home. My first Raspberry Pi project was trying to build a drone with a old WRT router. So, give it a try. Start with the sign, but I suggest do something you'll never use in the future. And Scrapjaw, seriously, smooth, funky beats, yo.
Thank you.
Scrap, last word.
Well, I got Qubes running, and it's just a whole bunch of containers, and it's not Ubuntu, so I don't know what to do. Sorry, that's all I got for you.
Nice. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We are still trying Qubes this week, so I do want to thank the developers for this operating system and this distro. It is not for me personally, but it is still out there for people to try, and it is a good use case for some people, so I do appreciate that work. We'll continue to try it this week, and we'll come back next week and give our final thoughts on it. Linux Spotlight. I, was kind of sick last week and so I had to cancel the interview on Sunday. That was just the way it was. I was not going to get through that whole interview. So we ended up recording it this past Sunday, and I'm just finishing editing it now. So it will go up Wednesday, and that is an interview with Jacob Rucker. He has a great story about Linux, and there are probably going to be some good outtakes on that one as well. So check that out Wednesday at 6 a.m. Other than that, we will see you next week and do it all over again. Maybe with a open sign that closes by itself. Who knows?
Nice. And Rocco, thank you for the stickers.
But until then, long live Linux.
See yous.
Bye.